I have this white pumpkin. I believe I picked this up last year, probably at Hobby Lobby or something to that nature, one of those stores, possibly Christmas Tree Shop. And today we're going to be working with In Bloom molds. This is a beautiful mold from Redesign by Prima. This is mine. I've used mine before. That's why mine looks the way it does. But you can clean them to look brand new. They can take up to 500 degrees of heat. They can be used for cooking. And today we're going to be using cornstarch. That's what I use to put inside my molds. And this is our paper clay that of choice that we're using today. Sometimes we do use a hot glue gun, but when I need to mold around an object, I stick with the clay. So I start by just taking a paintbrush and dusting some cornstarch in my mold, tapping out the excess. I'm going to grab the mold that I feel that I'm going to need. I'm going to start to flatten it, and you're just going to push it into the mold. You kind of have to hold, especially if you have the cornstarch in there, it does want to kind of slide. So I kind of hold it down with one hand as I'm pushing it in with the other. And then I just start working on getting the excess off. You can use a tool. I'm using a spackle knife to kind of help me flatten out the edges. And then you just kind of put it on its downside. I have a piece of glass under me and I slowly roll it out. You want to be gentle with it. This is a larger mold and sometimes they're a little bit easier to handle than the smaller ones. I'm kind of making a plan, and I use Elmer's wood glue. I just put the glue on the back, and the tip I'm going to give you about the gluing is you want to make sure that the glue hits all the tips around the edge. You really want the glue to make contact with all the edge of your mold, because as the paper clay dries, it wants to curl. So this kind of prevents it from curling up or lifting from your object. So I just make sure I hit all that. And of course I get it everywhere else. But I just, you want to take note that you really want those edges covered. You pick where you want to put your mold. And then I just start kind of going around all the edges and making sure it made contact with my object. And you really want to kind of form it where you want it to be and make sure that it's in place. I take painter's tape and I just lay it where I feel it'll keep it from sliding, because we got to wait for the glue to dry, or at least begin to dry. So that's what that part looks like. This is, guys, I'm sorry, this is a white pumpkin and the clay is white. So I made another one to put on the other side. It is a little tough to see, and there comes a couple points where my light was just in a bad spot, and I'm apologizing in advance for that. I didn't notice it, or I would have shifted it. So here I placed the second mold the same exact way. I kind of wanted it uniform, one on one side, one on the other. And we do have these molds at chalkitupfancy.com, along with some others. And then I'm going to put my painter's tape and put that aside to dry. So that was one possibility. Here's a $2 Dollar General pumpkin that I picked up. I'm going to pull all its decorative things off. And we're going to be using Elegant Borders mold. This is also from Redesign by Prima. This is brand new, so I'm going to be opening a new one. And this too can be found at chalkitupfancy.com. So I'm going to pick two of the borders. One kind of has a braid and the other one is a string of roses. And then I'm just going to put in the paper clay and go through the same process as I did before. I'm going to lay it flat on its face and roll it out. Now the roses were definitely a little bit more delicate to pick up. So I'm doing my Elmer's glue, and I'm going to lay this larger one down the center and this smaller string of, it looked like roses, some sort of floral, to the left. And then I did a second string of the roses and put it to the right. And I don't know why I put that little bit of glue to the right. I don't think I was thinking. That's not necessary. And then you can just clip off any length you need. So you can either wait till your mold completely dries, or you can actually paint it while it's wet. I do recommend using a primer first. I did not. And I felt like there was a little bit of cracking with the paint, not on the pumpkin, but kind of where some of the glue had spilt. But I just did 2 coats and it seemed to be fine. But primer does help a lot. It really does. But anyway, I'm using Snow Owl by Wise Owl and covering both projects. The smaller pumpkin was fine with no primer. The Elmer's glue dripped down and it kind of made the paint crack a little bit, where if I had done primer first on the pumpkin, it would have been fine. So I'm not saying primer's always needed, but just use your judgment. It worked out fine for me. So this is where the lighting's a little tough. I took some smoky quartz, and this is called a chip brush. It's just a cheap brush from the store, and I'm doing a dry brush. And it's just bringing out the embellishments of the flower. And what I love about the molds is you really can, be artistic. You could leave it simple like this with just the dusting of the gray. I went and emphasized the creases in the pumpkin with the smoky quartz. And again, that's pretty just the way it is. I decided to just show you guys some different ideas. This is Cleopatra Gold by Wise Owls Metallics. And I'm just doing a dusting on top of the gray. And this is just going to start giving dimension, just adding different colors if you want to. You could do almost like a metal look, or a rusty patina would be pretty. There's lots of options. Whatever you choose. And now I'm doing a little of the dried thyme on the leaves. And this is such a dry amount of paint. I just take a blow dryer and hit it before I go to the next color. Sometimes I don't. And this is black, just a very, very touch of black. This one I'm going to do very simple. I'm just going to take the chip brush and just dust the smoky quartz down the mold. And again, it's just bringing out the design and the texture. And then I just dusted the stem and the leaf. And I took a very, very little bit of gold and dry brushed it on the leaf and a very little bit on my mold. And I left the rest of it white. So the clay really can give a very vintage look. I just love it, personally. And then there you go. Here's my smaller white pumpkin. So I really hope this video was helpful, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see other tutorials by us, you can go to YouTube. You could also go to chalkitupfancy.com, where the paint products, tissue paper transfers, and mesh stencils are. And I hope you have a great, great day. Thank you so much for watching.